Hello again, everyone. Today we're going to hop into Deuteronomy, the fifth book of the Bible, and the last book of the Torah, or Pentateuch, which is the first section of the Bible. Deuteronomy means a second law. This book literally is Moses' giant speech to the younger generation in the wilderness. We saw in Numbers that the older generation was rejected and sentenced to be in the wilderness for the rest of their lives, but the second generation is going to come back. And Moses has a lot of instructions for the second generation that will be going into the promised land. So let's get started. Moses has a long opening speech. He starts it with warning this last generation about how bad the last generation was. But he now describes that the new generation should do better. That if they are more faithful to the covenant that they made with God, that they will keep his commands, then things will go well for them. They will have the promised land. Things will continue to go well with them, things like that. During this speech, he reiterates the Ten Commandments. This is where most people read the Ten Commandments in the Bible, but it's in multiple places. But then he gives also the Shema during this time. The Shema, if you're wondering what it is a really important part of Jewish culture, and also it is the Great Commandment. It is still the Great Commandment for us. So the Shema is, listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. This is in Deuteronomy 6 verses 4 to 5. Some important notes on this, though. That first word, listen, it's not printed here the way that I would want it. But listen, Shema, in Hebrew actually means to hear and respond. So it means, in a lot of ways, to obey. So you hear what God says, but you also carry out the action that God is telling you to do. So God calls on his people to listen. How do we listen to God well? That is a question that's going to continue to come up through our conversations that we have here. Then also love is obviously a very important word. What does it actually mean to love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and might? The Bible Project does have some great videos on the Shema, on what the heart means, what the soul means, what all your strength means, and what this meant actually as a Jewish person reading this at the time that it was given. But this love that we talk about is both an emotion and a decision. It's a little bit different than agape. It's a vana love, and a little bit different than the covenant love that we talk about. But as an overall, where it's given here, it's talking about a love that is both an emotional love for who God is, but also the decision to continue loving him even when you don't feel like doing it. So do we love him in a way that we continue to do the things even when we might not want to? Do we listen to him in a way that we respond and obey? After this, there's an articulation of the law. Again, in chapters 12 through 16, the law is redescribed. The big emphasis is there's one temple, and also caring for the poor is what you have to do. That literally equals worshiping God. This marks all sins under idolatry and injustice, which makes sense with our great commandments nowadays, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength, and also to love your neighbor as yourself. Doing the opposite of loving God is following something other than God, idolatry. Doing something other than loving your neighbor as yourself is presenting an injustice, either to you not loving yourself well enough or not loving others well enough. So all sins fall under this. Then there continues on. Moses gives a bit of a kind of shrouded thing that actually foreshadows going forward to the kings. God said that he's going to send prophets that will hold accountable the leaders of Israel. This is one way that Jesus is a prophet. He does hold the leaders accountable. We see with the Pharisees and Sadducees and other things like that. This is just a small interlude during the middle of Deuteronomy. After that, there's another section on the law. This part really outlines some civil laws about marriage, family, how community is going to work, business, especially when getting into the promised land. And also it's about social justice, always as it is in the Old Testament, looking out for the poor, widows, orphans, and things like that. They are given this law. It is reiterated to them so that the second generation going into the promised land can remember this. Deuteronomy ends with a final speech by Moses. Again, pretty much this entire book are speeches by Moses, but this is really a truly amazing kind of mic drop moment for Moses. He says, "I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live and that you may love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, and hold fast to him. For the Lord is your life, and he will give you many years in the land he swore to give your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." So here we have Moses pleading with this new generation to listen to God, to do what he desires, to have a heart like him, to become like him. The same things that we desire for ourselves and others nowadays. In the middle there, it says to love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, and hold fast to him. I think that's a great reminder for all of us all the time. After this, Moses is still not hopeful for Israel, he shows, but he does have a hope that one day he gets a revelation from God that while in exile, God is going to take their hearts and help us to love him and give us life. Joshua is appointed as Moses' successor, but after giving this speech, his final speech, he goes up to a mountain and passes away. And that is the end of the story of Moses, one of the greatest Israelite leaders in the Old Testament.